2 weeks ago, this parish saw an amazing 7 days of youth activities with the success of our first ever vacation Bible camp and then a very fruitful youth ministry retreat at which 91 young people were present in attendance. It was very encouraging to see the 10-year vision being lived out. There was an amazing organization of both events, which included a lot of parents. Parents get involved because it's obvious you love your children, and you will give yourself in many different ways when you see them happy, engaged in good, wholesome things, and hopefully learning about their faith. Because they could get the first two perhaps elsewhere, but not the last one. Learning about their faith, about their Catholic faith. It's important to know that when we see and experience these good things, that we do not allow them to become, in effect, what is a one-off. Children and students can have a great Bible camp or a retreat weekend. It can happen with adults as well. But if we are not prepared to keep it going, to live a relationship, an ongoing relationship with Jesus Christ, then when the event is over, it is almost certain that people will basically go back to what they were doing before. This great week of youth activities, and there is another one coming up with the altar server camp at which 50 boys are registered for this. There was 60 for the vacation Bible camp, 91 for the youth ministry, and there's 50 for the altar server camp. There may be more, but at least 50. Calls all of us, especially parents, whether you're involved or not, to ask a very important question that Jesus turned around and asked Peter and Andrew, or asked Peter and John, I think it was. Basically, it's captured by John in this first chapter of his gospel, chapter 30, verse 38, when Jesus turns to them and says, "What are you looking for? What are you really, that's my words, really looking for?" That's the import of the question. What are you really looking for, both of you? Are you looking for the right things to happen for your children and for yourself? Is that what you're really looking for? If you are, then we all, and if you're not, even more so, we all need to open ourselves to what C.S. Lewis calls first and second things. First and second things. Lewis wrote about this in a book published that probably most people don't read anymore. It's called God in the Dock. It's a series of essays where he puts it this way. He says, put first things first, and we get the second things thrown in. Put second things first, and we lose both first and second things. Then he provides an example, many, but I'm just going to focus on one. We never get, say, even the sensual pleasure of food at its best when we are being gluttonous. So if you're a glutton, you may enjoy food initially, but then you don't enjoy it anymore because you've abused the pleasure. You've abused the initial purpose of food. The first purpose of food is not pleasure. It's to nourish the body. Pleasure is second, sociability is third. So there's many other examples as well. Hence, we need to choose first things first. And in order to do this, we need wisdom. In order to experience the truth and fruit of Jesus' teaching, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. How do you hear that in terms of its application when that is said? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. Does that mean we just pray and somehow everything else is going to fall into place? How do we hear that? Well, frame it in terms of first things first and second things second, which I'll unpack a bit. When we do this, choose the first things, then we can and will appreciate the second things, what Jesus refers to as all these other things. Diving into the first reading, Solomon chooses the first thing. When God says, it's the ultimate question, and God doesn't put a qualifier on it. He says, ask me whatever you want and I'll give it to you. Imagine God saying that to you, and he could give you Asia. He could give you the whole world. He doesn't put any qualifier on it. We know what Solomon asks for, an understanding heart, because he has to rule all these people. God does two things. Number one, he commends him for asking for a wise and understanding heart. He says, I'm going to give you wisdom. Two, God grants these things. God grants him the things he didn't ask for. And the reason God does this is because with the gift of wisdom, he will use the second things properly. As long as, and this is a huge caveat, as long as he keeps wisdom strong in his life. Now, if you know the end of Solomon's life, he didn't. So we have to learn from the life of Solomon. He started so well, he finished so badly. He let sensual pleasures, the three W's that the kings of Israel were forbidden to accumulate. He lost wisdom and allowed himself to succumb to the temptations of war, meaning soldiers and horses, wealth, gold and silver, he heaped up, and women. He had 700 concubines. They were all political alliances. He failed in all three regards because he lost wisdom. Wisdom will help us to keep God first. That's why we need to pray for it every single day and measure our behavior, our actions against it, so that we may use the second things right or properly. Like, to put it into our contemporary situation, sports, or the desire for success in life, types of entertainment, academics. So another practical example is why it's so important that we pray for and open ourselves up to wisdom, the gift of wisdom, which God will grant us if we're sincere about it, is even if you have Jesus, you go to Mass every Sunday, but then you allow your work to become all-consuming and you're, in effect, not around your spouse, husband or wife. Eventually, that should happen. In other words, hey, buddy, get a life, which is here in the home first. All right, we got to spend time with each other. Otherwise, you're going to be a statistic, not a good one. So this is how something, even if you're going to church all the time, everything can be going south because you're not keeping second things in their proper order. Because this is probably, first things first is not really being paid attention to seriously, because God says your first vocation, if you're married, is your family. After me, you worship the Lord your God, and then it's your family, and then everything else is ordered and structured against that. So how much should you and I seek out wisdom? The gospel of the day provides an answer. While one treasure is found by accident and one on purpose, both individuals sell everything they own to possess the treasure of great price. Whether you were born into the treasure of the Catholic faith by not looking, or you found it by intention, you converted to the Catholic faith, to the Catholic Church, or reverted. You had this conversion experience as a Catholic, came back to the practice of your faith. It's important that all of us ask, is Jesus Christ that great treasure you now have and are willing to sell everything else for? Is he worth everything, such that you are willing to let him align everything in your life, your priorities, your schedule, your calendar, so that he will help you to keep first things first and everything else is second. And even the seconds will be in their proper order. You and I need to let Jesus into our priorities. We need to give him permission, explicitly give him permission to get into our schedules and realign everything according to this gift of wisdom that Solomon prayed for and received. And then at some point, he gave in to compromises and he didn't correct himself or allow the Lord to correct him, and then he gave way to greater transgressions. So we need to learn that we don't just ask for it and may acquire it, but keep it through a daily exercise, a daily request. Just imagine, I invite everyone to imagine what it would be like if every child who attended the Vacation Bible School, or Corpus Christi Youth Ministry Retreat, and who will attend the Altar Servers Camp, if everyone was involved in youth ministry in an ongoing way. No one-offs, by ongoing involvement. In Corpus Christi Youth Ministry, and in the near future, even a junior youth ministry, which doesn't exist at this time. Your child would be around like-minded young people and experience that learning about Jesus and experiencing their faith is not only good, but can be enjoyable. I would like to think that I sort of in some way indicate that learning about Christ and giving your life to Christ it's a good thing, it's an enjoyable thing. Enjoyable not like eating ice cream, right? That's one kind of enjoyable. But it's enjoyable like the beauty of a sunset. This is like really good. But Jesus is 100 billion times better than a beautiful sunset or an amazing family time. Like Jesus is the possession of the ultimate good. So it's much better than the ice cream cone, even though this may taste better, for a little bit anyways. It can also make them more aware of their blessings in life, learning about these and then being more thankful to God and their parents. And what parent, put your hand up if you don't want your child to be more thankful for what they have received in life. 100%, actually, that's pretty good. No, every parent wants their child to grow in gratitude. Gratitude. The children begin to learn first things first and second things second. But, and this is a big but, for this to take place, we need engaged disciples and a willingness to multiply leaders through parent commitment and involvement. And for parent commitment and involvement to take place, you would need to answer the question posed to you by Jesus, because it is to each one of us in our own way. What are you looking for? What are you really looking for in life? What are you looking for when it comes to your children? What do you really, 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 really want? What is the first thing in your life? Because your answer will not come so much from your mouth, but from your actions. It comes from our actions. They will become, and what is our first thing will become the children's first thing because they're learning from us as adults. Rightly so, even though if it's a bad thing, meaning they should be learning from us. And we should want them to learn the good first things first. What is the one thing that determines the rest of your weekly calendar? Sports? Academics on Sunday to the exclusion of Mass? Or is the first thing Jesus Christ in your Catholic faith? And I mean Mass every Sunday, so Jesus is really understood in the family to be Lord. It is the Lord's Day, after all. It's the day on which Jesus rose from the dead. It changed everything in history. The problem is we're not tuned into it yet. The whole world could radically change because the power is there in the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Problem is, it's kind of like the power socket. We're the plug, and we're not hooked in, or we are when we feel like it. We're not there consistently plugged into everything the resurrection can do for us on a daily basis. What are you looking for? Good things happened several weeks ago. This was a glimpse. This was a glimpse into what could be a reality that becomes a way of life in your children's life, your life, and in the life of this community of Corpus Christi. But we need to give Jesus permission to enter our life and teach our priorities. First things first, and second things second. So I invite you to really pray for this gift of wisdom. St. James in his short epistle says we should be praying for this all the time. Here's a short, simple prayer that I encourage you to pray every day. I'll put it in the bulletin next week and then up in the YouTube. Lord, give me the wisdom to know what is right. Lord, give me the wisdom to know what is right, to know it needs to be first in my life. And give me the courage to do what is right, even when it is hard and difficult. Because sure as heck, it's going to be hard and difficult some days. Lord, give me the wisdom to know what is right, to know what needs to be first in my life and in the life of my children. And give me the courage to do what is right, especially when it is hard and difficult. And may all of us gain this wisdom so that we keep first things first and second things second.